This is the Chapter 13 lecture. We'll be looking at physical activity and health and sports nutrition. Physical activity is important for health of all individuals. Research has shown that physical activity can lower the risk for chronic disease, help us manage a number of conditions, and certainly helps individuals manage their weight. Research has also shown that not only does this have benefits for our physical health, but also for our mental health. Be sure to read this link. There are physiological changes that occur with training, and it's important to understand them so you understand the benefits. And with training, we also see a change in body composition, less fat, more lean, which not only enables you to be stronger, faster, fitter, but also increases your metabolic rate and allows you to lose weight more easily or perhaps to consume more calories. You can see here that as people exercise more, not only do they expend more calories in the physical activity, but their metabolic rate, their basal energy expenditure increases as well. This means that you're burning more calories even when you're sleeping as you become more fit. The exercise recommendations are listed on this chart. We usually hear about moderate exercise, 150 minutes per week, combined with some form of muscle strengthening and stretching as well throughout the week. But there's also the exercise prescription that uses more vigorous activity. Children have a higher prescription, 60 minutes daily of developmentally appropriate activities, and our kids, unfortunately, are falling far short of this. I think one of the things that is very, very important is that you find something that you enjoy. Just as a diet pattern should not be foods that you hate but you eat because you're supposed to, physical activity should not be punishment. There's so many different forms of physical activity that it is quite easy to find something that fits everyone's budget, lifestyle, likes, as well as safety requirements in addition. Definitely read through this chart. When we're together on campus again, we can think more about how to stay fit on campus. We really have some nice areas around our campus, especially in the spring and the summer and the fall, for walking. There's also a gym on campus as well. As people are in their own homes, they've had to be creative with their fitness, although walking is still permitted even during a quarantine with appropriate social distancing. A lot of individuals turn to YouTube videos to stream in some exercise programs. So a quick look at nutrition for athletes, which is a really neat area in the field of nutrition. This, by the way, is my daughter, and she is a triathlete. I talk about both my children because they were athletes through school, but each of them, when they embarked upon their careers, lost that piece of their lifestyle, but they found that they needed it not only for being healthy, but also for being mentally healthy. So each of them, my daughter became a triathlete, my son took up surfing and does some running as well, put sport back into their lives. With regards to sports nutrition, these concepts are very important to understand because they dictate a lot about fuel use. So definitely review the difference between aerobic metabolism and anaerobic metabolism. What we see is before we have enough oxygen on board, so early in the exercise period or at very high intensity levels, we have to rely more on the substrates that can be broken down anaerobically. So we're looking at glucose here. Once we have oxygen available, then we can break down glucose, amino acids, or fatty acids for fuel. When we talk about fitness and we talk about physical activity, it's important to understand that the organs and tissues involved in the transport of that oxygen become stronger and more efficient. So when you look at the effects of fitness, you see a stronger heart and a lower resting pulse rate. You see stronger lungs. You actually see that the blood, you have more red blood cells. They have a greater ability to move oxygen through the body as well. Some more effects of training are here. Again, more blood is pumped with each heartbeat. That's that stronger, more efficient heart. Blood volume increases, okay, so that we can carry that oxygen around. And you see greater glycogen storage and mitochondria to increase that aerobic capacity. When someone is very fit, their resting pulse rate is lower because their heart is stronger and can move more blood. You can take your own pulse over a period of 30 seconds, then multiply by 2. Remember not to use your thumb, and you can see illustrated here how that pulse is found. Between 60 and 100 is what we normally see, but there are a number of factors that increase your pulse, like a couple of cups of coffee in the morning. All right, back to aerobic and anaerobic. When we're looking at the duration of that exercise, we know that early on the muscles don't have the oxygen they need, and therefore anaerobic metabolism is what we rely on. So first it's ATP, then it is glucose, and then we see, and you see this here, aerobic metabolism becomes a bigger part. So read through this slide. When we're talking about exercise intensity, we use the same concepts regarding aerobic and anaerobic. In high intensity activity, where we can't keep up with those oxygen needs completely, we see a reliance on glucose. Moderate is mixed, and at rest, we see more reliance on fat. And here we see the energy expenditure, and this should make perfect sense to you. The more physically active you are, the more calories you burn. Now, along with all the benefits of sports, it's also important to recognize the unhealthy practices and issues that might come about. So weight loss is often a goal of athletes in order to increase their sports performance, but that could be done in a very unhealthy way. So that needs to be evaluated. We talked about the female athlete triad and REDS in the last lecture. Sports anemia can be an issue because of foot strike, so that crushes red blood cells. It can also be a problem because of a poor diet and dehydration as well. Some of the needs of an athletes tend to need more carbohydrate to pack away glycogen in stores and to provide fuel, but it's basically a healthy, well-rounded diet. Carbohydrate in research has shown to increase the time to exhaustion, and that's why we rely on it. Pasta parties, bagel breakfasts, and such. Look at the video bite for sure. Most athletes who are eating well are meeting all of their nutritional needs because they're eating more calories to fuel that extra activity. But if you have an athlete who doesn't have a sound diet, a multivitamin could be a bit of a backup. Fluid is probably the most overlooked nutrient for athletes, and it can have disastrous consequences if you don't keep up with your fluid consumption. Athletes are advised to hydrate before, during, and after training and events. And you can see here how performance is impaired by dehydration. The question is what type of fluid, and that depends on the length of the exercise session. If there's a lot of loss of electrolytes through sweating and that athlete hydrates only through water, they can dilute their blood sodium and cause a potentially fatal condition called hyponatremia. It can cause swelling of the brain, bloating, etc. So athletes who exercise for longer than about 60 minutes or so should be consuming a sports beverage. And if you lose weight during an exercise session, it's important to hydrate to replace that afterwards. And the rule of thumb is 16 to 24 ounces for each pound of weight loss. So keep that in mind. That becomes part of a test question. But again, you see here, athletes should hydrate before, during, and after exercise. Anabolic steroids come with great health risks that athletes should be advised about and against. Creatine, however, is not a steroid. It is used by some athletes that tend to be strength or power athletes because it puts more creatine on board to support production of ATP. Creatine can soak up some fluid and cause bulking, which isn't great for all sports for sure. It should be used according to the directions, and I would always advise checking in with a sports nutritionist as well. Finally, there is a fantastic video right here that looks at sports nutrition for 3 different types of athletes and shows you what the diet looks like. So I'd really like you to listen to that. And the final parting words are, we've talked about the importance of physical activity and the needs of an athlete. It's also important for all of us, especially during times where our movement is more restricted, to get up and about, to not be couch potatoes. Research has shown the more we sit, the less healthy we are. And we might look at this as one of our discussions, so I am going to save this for later. Let me just say a few words, however. When we want to talk about change in behaviors, it's become clear that there needs to be a multi-pronged or multi-layered approach to that. This is called the social ecological models of health behavior. So not only do we need to educate, but in the classroom or maybe in the doctor's office, but we also need to work at the level of the community and the organizations and interpersonal. We also need to talk about public policies. So when we look around at our environment at CCP, we can consider those same factors. How could CCP be a healthier place to go to school? Okay, take care.